Since the recording has stopped, can I say something?
No, the recording's on.
Just started.
And you're being recorded. Go
All
ahead,
right.
John.
Well, I just want to throw this out there that my understanding of the purpose of the sand being dumped is to compensate for the natural erosion of the bank, because there is a artificial structure which is preventing the natural erosion. What I think is creeping into this world is homeowners using sand remediation, not so much to replace, or not only to replace the sand that's naturally washing into the ocean, but as a way to protect their property from erosion, which is a different agenda than ours. And I think that one of the reasons that the numbers have gotten skewed is because homeowners are using the sand, whatever the term we use, the dumping of sand to protect their homes, as opposed to the process by which there's a fairly accurate understanding of how much sand it would naturally be lost versus how much is being,
Right.
in.
So
And that's a concern.
right. So you're saying that people are dumping sand, saying, take that sand instead of my sand.
Yeah.
This part, right? Right.
Well, let's put the term in. It's called beach renourishment. It's not dumping of sand. It's beach renourishment, because that's within our orders of conditions.
Right.
So yes, and sometimes the amount is determined by coastal geologists who are trying to predict how much would be normally be disappear as a result of the structure, but that's really sometimes very hard to calculate. And we're relying on their calculations. But John's right. Sometimes homeowners have added more to protect their property or the neighbor's property because of a CES, coastal engineered structure, that they have on their property.
So it is based, there's a calculation. It's based on the height of the bank times the erosion rate, times the length. So it's not just some arbitrary number. We've gone back and forth between long-term erosion rate, short-term erosion rate. And sometimes we look at the top of the bank, and other times we look at the height of the structure. So we go back and forth between those two methods of determining the amount when there's a CES in place. And I guess we're kind of, there's two separate interests here. One is these aquaculture farms, and the other is the beach and the sediment flow. So I don't know how we deal with both interests when they both serve totally different purposes and functions. Unless, of course, and there's shellfish all over the harbor, so it's not like we can select another location and dump it all in another location either.
Hillary, didn't you have a plan to have compensation mitigation somewhere else, right?
Yep, so that study's underway. We're about halfway through, but it's not complete yet.
That's probably going to be psychologically less satisfactory for the owners, but has there ever been, like dumping a truckload of blue sand or something to try to see how it disperses? Has there ever been an experiment like that where there's?
Well,
Not that I'm aware of.
They can use isotopes and size rather than dye.
Right, which would be better, I'm sure. But it sounds like with the density of the population along the coast and the density of the oysters, therein lies the problem, is that there's nowhere to dump it. And if we dump anything, it's likely to interfere with the watermen. Is that correct?
To interfere with the watermen,
Fishermen?
the water, Watermen.
The
Okay, sorry,
aquaculture.
I've never heard them referred to as watermen. That, yes. I think
They're
there
men
is
that stand in the water and work.
water women, water men. I don't know. Water them.
Water
them.
people.
Water people.
Well, it's kind of complicated because the shellfish are considered a resource. And in our regulations, we are allowed to alter the amount of sand mitigation if it is affecting a resource.
Well,
And if the shellfish are considered a resource, but the resource might not be aquaculture, it might be the natural oysters that are there. And so it's complicated. I mean, you have to sort out what's being affected. Is it aquaculture or is it wild fishery? And we are allowed to alter the amount of sand mitigation, even though it's part of a orders of conditions for different properties, if it affects the resource adversely. So I think we have to sort these things out. And I don't think this happens at a business meeting. I think it happens, at a sit down where we look at all these conflicting issues.
well, and also I would contend that if you take away some of the beach nourishment, the downdrift properties from these structures are going to suffer. And
That's right.
so I don't know how we take away the nourishment. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how we deal with the two competing interests.
Right. And I was interested in the maps that the Shellfish Department sent because I was wondering how that was a result, the changes were a result of any kind of sand renourishment that was mandated or just natural processes. So.
And I guess, can Jordan walk us through those? Do we all have those? Because I'm struggling to even know what exactly I'm looking at because I can't find the dates on them and.
Yes,
The
the
month-
dates are really small on all of them. I can sort of walk you through it, but I wasn't there during the conversation when they talked about writing this memo and sending it off to you guys. But I certainly know what is there, so we can look through that. And I just wanted to comment that I think that the point of the comments on beach nourishment was more to get you all thinking about the sediment transport from the beach nourishment, and not so much to recommend not doing it, but maybe recommend looking into ways that we could maybe reduce it or look to take some kind of action that isn't just getting rid of it, because that's obviously not in our best interest either.
Right. So I guess my question would be, if we alter the amount of replenishment, what's the metrics that we can use to see if we're being successful or not? Would it be the amount of erosion, the height of the beach where the sediment was supposed to go? I mean, how would we know?
Well, it's going to be different in each and every location as to what purpose it's serving. So that's why each location gets looked at independently. And maybe it seems like King Philip is their, I don't want to say issue, but has their interest right now. And so maybe
Right.
it's looking at, maybe folks have to do the nourishment 4 times a year in less quantity at each event. However, that's going to be, of course, more costly to the homeowner than dumping it all at one time. But there are other options to look at, sort of spreading out the nourishment over the year.
Okay.
I
And
also don't know how
That's interesting.
can I just add
Yes, Barbara,
something?
go
The
ahead.
shellfish aren't the only resource. The shellfish aren't the only resource. We have a state protected diamondback terrapin nesting area in that location, and they need sand to nest. And we've lost a lot of nesting there, and that's a state protected species. So we're torn. I mean, who do you protect? You protect the state protected species? Do you protect someone's aquaculture grant? It's really a very complicated issue. And even with the sand renourishment, there'll be a time of year restriction. You might not be able to do 4 times a year because terrapins are nesting from June, and the hatchlings emerge until the end of October. So you really won't be able to do anything during that time if you have to go through natural heritage. So it's very complicated, and I know that, and I can document that we've lost a lot of diamondback terrapin nesting area at the end of King Philip as a result of the loss of sand in that area. And even the beach renourishment has not kept up with the nesting areas that have been lost there.
I also don't know how much this is talked about when talking about nourishment, but Nancy brought up having the sand put there, not at the astronomical high and low tides.
Yeah, yeah.
Give it a chance. Yeah, okay. I just wasn't sure. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We talk, she's brought that to our attention a number of times. So we have that. And I guess, I don't know, can we go back to Jordan and these pictures? Because I guess what I'm seeing is that number 854A looks to be like one of the ones in concern. That would be, is that how you refer to the farm 854A, or the grant?
Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Can you share the document?
Yes, can we
Yeah.
share the screen?
I can, Jordan, do you want to share the screen, or I can?
Can you do it?
Yep, totally. Hold on. Let me just make sure I open it back up.
It's a better thee than me kind of situation.
That's fine.
Oh, I see which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it seems to me that besides the politics of the conflicting needs, we need more science to this. I mean, we can try things, but it has kind of a long turnaround.
You guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We could also ask Greg Berman to weigh in on this, because he's good with this kind of thing.
Mhm.
We can send him this memo and get his thoughts, because he may have some other thoughts on it, or, maybe perhaps the sand is just moving through the system and isn't exactly, connected to the beach nourishment.
Right. So what are we looking at right here? Where's the, okay, where are we? Is this the tip of Indian
You
Neck?
are at Field Point, so the very end of King Philip Road, where the state
Mhm.
marsh is there.
Okay. Mhm.
So that is where we're at. And Hillary was asking if grant 854 was 854A was one of the specific grants. I don't know the number of the grants specifically that have voiced concerns, but a few have voiced that they have seen an increase of sand in inches from anywhere between 5 to 15 inches. Mike DeVosto dug up a old grant marker on an adjacent grant that was about 18 inches deep. So that's just some of the feedback that we're getting from people that have grants over there. And we don't know, it might not be related to the nourishment. This just might be the natural transport of sediment. But I guess probably what I'm thinking that Nancy was hoping to get started was a conversation that maybe will lend itself a little bit more to science and less experimentation.
Jordan, excuse my ignorance, but what's the ramification to the shell fishermen on this? If more sand comes, does it hurt the oysters? Does it cover up their bags? I mean, what happens?
So a couple things, it can cover clam beds or clam nets, which are all on the ground and stapled to the ground. And then the biggest thing is that it increases the amount of time that it's exposed out of the water. So oysters on a more inshore area of the grant would maybe be exposed longer than they had in the past. So Mike DeVosto's anecdotal evidence is that the top half or the top acre of his grant is out a half an hour longer before and after the tide than it used to be.
And I take it that slows the growth of the
Yeah,
oysters?
it slows the growth of the oysters.
Okay. So, okay. So we're talking,
It also feeds into things like needing to move further, like deeper
Mhm.
in. So all these grant extension requests that we've gotten, some of them are the product of more sand being on the top acres of their grants.
So are the grant, I mean, it doesn't, 854A, for instance, doesn't look farmed, but if I look down where I see all this black stuff, this looks like where the farms are.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
we know which one is Mike DeVosto's farm?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Jordan could probably look that up. The
Yeah.
other thing I want to say is about being exposed. Now that we have Vibrio control, the product that you're going to harvest can't be exposed certain times of the year for certain amounts of time. Otherwise, it's considered a risk for Vibrio. So that's another issue for the
Okay.
shell fishermen. You want to try to have stuff in the water as much as possible, not necessarily in deep water, but covered by water. The more exposed it is, the longer it is, the less time they have to harvest and get it into coolers.
Thank you.
So Mike DeVos's grant number is 855, which would be right next to that 854 that we were just looking at.
All right, I
Um,
gotta look at it in larger print here so I can just see where we are. Okay, so 855 is to the left, so right here.
Right.
And 855B, he must be 855B too, right?
Yes.
Can we
Do
zoom
we
in
know
a
who
little bit on that?
854B is? 854B, anybody?
Give me 1 second. 854B is Bob Hussey.
Okay,
Robert.
and what about 852B? Because it seems like 852B, looking at this and looking at the sand, seems like most of the sand flows.
I'm 852B, Curtis Graham.
Okay, Curtis, what have you experienced? We've received a letter from you in the past, right?
Yep. No, everything that you said, I've experienced and then more. I get sand covering up my racks, bags. It looks
Okay,
like I get a northwest wind out there and all that sand comes right out of that hole at the end of King Philip. It only takes 2 tides.
because it looks like, that's what I was gonna say, it looks like 852B
Yep.
is like the end zone for this. 855 doesn't look, from these pictures that you gave us, like it's affected. It looks like it all lands on 852B, coming through 854A to 853 to 852.
Mhm.
So I would say whatever Curtis is seeing, on his grant is probably the worst of what we're seeing out here. Does that sound about right?
I would say from where I see it every day, for sure.
Do you see it more like, have you been able to document when the issue is at its worst? Is it immediately following the renourishment out there, or?
Well, it doesn't take long once they renourish it, but we get any northwest winds and or big tides, then it's gone within a day or two. But the prevailing winter winds, it's the northwest wind, and it just doesn't take long at all. Within a week, it'll be out of there.
Off the walls.
Yeah, off the wall. And like you're saying, people are pushing themselves further out into the channel just to keep their product in the underwater longer.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe we want to reach out to Greg Berman and see if he'd be willing to look at our renourishment amounts for the properties along there, and look at the shellfish and look at the direction of the sand flow, and see if he could sort of walk us through some options.
My problem is it's non-native sand, and I feel like killing off all of the eelgrass and any of the dune grass that's planted, because it is non-native sand and it blows and buries all of that eelgrass up over the winter time and creates more of a problem, I feel.
I think that's a good idea, Hillary, to get Greg Berman to weigh in on,
Yeah.
so we could better understand the whole process, not only just at the end of King Philip, but along that whole stretch from Omaha to King Philip, because we don't, there are a lot of properties there that are being renourished because they have coastal engineered structures.
Mhm.
So I think this is a good study area to get some idea of what's happening
Okay.
before we make any decisions.
Sure, I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see what his availability is.
So the
Is there any
situation
other
we have,
options? Like quarry rolls or any kind of sandbags, or is there anything else other than bringing in sand?
Well, not exactly, because the sand gets put down when the rock structures go in, or even when quar bags are used, because it replaces the sediment that would be coming out from a natural bank.
the situation we have now, it seems like we're the turtles aren't happy. The shell fishermen are not happy, and the homeowner is not happy. So we have a real problem here. He's going to lose his house, or she's going to lose her house, or ultimately the grant is going to become unusable because it's getting silted in so bad. And the turtles don't have a place to go.
But most of the people won't lose their homes because they have rock revetments in front of them.
But if
isn't
you
all
cut
the-
off all the sediment, then we're no longer feeding the marsh down here. So,
That's right. Yeah, I'm just talking about the homeowners. They're the most protected of this
Yeah.
group right now.
Okay,
But the marsh is suffering, the turtles are suffering, the shell fishermen are suffering, and there may be some homeowners who aren't permitted to have coastal engineered structures who are losing a lot of property as well.
Yep.
So I think we need to have a meeting with Greg.
sure, I will engage him tomorrow.
I want to say thank you guys for taking the time to talk about this, and move forward, trying to think of different ways to accommodate all the different stakeholders in this.
Right,
Thank
it's
you.
important. We've been talking about it for a while. So thank you for bringing it up.
Is
And
this
this-
Becca Taylor? Just, I don't know if that's her or if she wants to say anything. I don't know if she fishes out in that area or if that's even her.
It is
She's
me.
Okay,
I think everyone has already said the important things.
okay.
The only other thought I had was like, can sand be put directly where the turtles need it? Don't they need to be further up the beach than where the sand is washing into the grants? Probably can't get a truckload of sand out there though.
I think we need to talk to Greg because
Okay.
that may be washed away too.
Okay.
Eventually, with sea level rise and storms and erosion, you put it up higher on the beach, that we don't know where it's going to go either. It might go right onto the grants.
Right.
So,
So let's reach
thank
out
you.
to Greg, and when we get something, we can circle back through the shellfish department, and Nancy or Jordan can notify their constituents and we can talk about it at a meeting. I think that
okay.
sounds like the
And
most logical.
John, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think it's, and I'm assuming that Greg will do this, but I want to get a sense of a projection of what would have happened if we hadn't had the revetments historically. Where was the sand going before there were revetments? And has there been any change in that pattern? Because there's a lot of change that's happening that's outside of our control. The fact that Billingsgate Island doesn't exist anymore has affected that shoreline there. So I want to know, because it seems to me I'm sympathetic to the shellfishermen, and I very much don't think we need to be dumping sand that's hurting shellfishermen. On the other hand, if shellfishermen are putting their grants in an area that's going to would have naturally been inundated by sand, even if we hadn't had dumping, if there hadn't been the revetments, then I think the problem is they shouldn't have put grants there. So I want to have a sense of what would have happened if we hadn't put the revetments in. Where's the sand moving generally? And then where this, so I want a historical overview of the whole thing. I don't like the sort of, finding a solution to a problem without figuring out how these problems are interrelated.
I
So
agree.
historical sand movement.
And Mr. Graham, thank you for helping me understand the ramifications of this. I appreciate it.
I thank you guys for taking your time.
You're welcome. You guys are important to us. Okay, so I take it that we are finished with that.
Finish with that for now. It will come back once we
Yep.
have something from Greg. We have one jurisdictional opinion if you want to
Let's
tackle that
do-
next, and then we'll have a little bit of time for the
For
vote.
boats
Vote.
on beaches.
Yeah.
And
boots on-
minutes.
B.O.B.
And
Boats on
minutes.
beaches.
And minutes.
and
Oh,
then-
in minutes.
Okay, so let's do the jurisdictional opinion quick because I think it's a quick one. It's for Tom and Pat Steiner at 1 Indian Neck Road in Wellfleet. They would like to cut down 2 trees and 4 mini saplings. They're all locusts and they're all leaning on the side of his house.
Has anyone been out there?
I have,
Mitigation necessary?
I think we can always provide some shrubs out there,
Okay.
so I can work with him on that.
Okay,
All right, if you're willing to work with the homeowners on some kind of mitigation for the trees that are coming down.
I'm gonna go with 6 shrubs as mitigation and the saplings are really tiny.
I move that we approve the JO.
Can I just ask a question first?
Yeah.
sure. Go ahead, John.
It's a JO because it's only 2 trees as opposed to 3 or 4.
Exactly.
We don't have a situation where people come before us with 2 trees and then 3 years later come with another 2 trees.
No, we haven't seen that.
Okay,
And it's all on the record.
I'm with it.
Are they big trees, Hillary?
The locusts are sizable, yeah.
I second the motion. Marty,
Yes.
Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
I'm going to abstain because I'm still worried about the fact we're taking down trees and replacing it with shrubbery.
okay. Michael,
I'll vote
Yes.
against.
I could
Okay.
ask him to plant. Well, I'll work with him. Let me see.
If he could put some cedars or something else
Yeah,
there
I'm
that,
thinking about maybe
Mhm.
the bare oaks.
yeah.
If you do that, I change my objection to a yes.
So can we go back and I can undo my,
all right, why don't we start all over again? I will entertain a new motion, Barbara.
Okay, I move that we approve the JL if Hillary works with the homeowners to mitigate by planting trees if possible, mixture of trees and shrubs to compensate for the biomass. And the
And
habitat.
I'll second that. So once again, Marty, we have a
Yes.
new vote. Yes. Barbara,
Yes,
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Mike,
Yes.
and Leon says yes too.
Okay,
So did you say that the tree was actually leaning on his house
leaning towards it.
towards it? Okay.
Yeah, not leaning on it, but towards it.
Given another wind, it might be on it.
I hope not. All right, so
So-
then we have. Oh,
Boats on beaches.
back to boats.
Let's do the minutes first.
yeah.
Okay.
Good idea. I read the minutes. They looked very good to me. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Mike.
It was
Uh,
mostly Michael. I just take a glance afterward.
well, Michael's a very fastidious person when it comes to language. I appreciate that.
But not clothing, and my wife will tell you.
Your bike tires are getting worn too. So I move that we accept the meeting minutes for September 17th. Was that right?
October.
I mean, it's October, and it was 17th, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we accept those minutes.
No,
Second.
sorry, it would be November 3rd, right? Today's the 17th.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was just hopeful thinking. Okay, November 3rd. Sorry, I'm
Right.
lost in space and time here. And John, did you second it?
Second.
Okay, Marty,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Barbara,
Yes,
Ben,
Yes.
and John,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Okay, that's a done deal. Now we can talk about boats on beaches. I've been waiting all evening for this. Who's going to lead this discussion?
Barbara?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just circulated a memo that Suzanne sent to me, which I think is our business, about
Mhm.
someone wanted to put a sailfish on Powers Landing because she noted other sailfish on Powers Landing. But apparently none of those sailfish were permitted and they should have been in a rack. But Suzanne maintains that people are doing this because no one's enforcing the regulations. And Suzanne implied that it was up to the Conservation Commission to enforce the regulations. And that's all the information I have. I do know that there were signs that were vandalized and taken down at the end of King Philip about boat storage. And unless Hillary pressed the harbor master to do something, no one really is patrolling or enforcing any of these regulations. I don't know if it's our job to do it, but I just want to point out that Suzanne thought it was our job because we have the regulation.
Is
I
it
don't
not,
have a badge. I don't even have an identification badge, let alone a badge.
Well, some of you were not on the commission when we had a person, Ally, do you remember that, Hillary?
I remember that better than any of you.
Okay, so she went around and she put little signs on the boats that they should be removed because they weren't permitted and weren't allowed to be there. And there was a big uproar and a lot of complaints levied against the Conservation Commission for telling people that they couldn't put their boats there or telling them that they were going to be removed if they remain there. I think that we tried to educate people over this past year by signage and giving information to like Jack's Rental about you can't leave boats there, but they still ended up on the beaches. And the point is that if no one's enforcing, people are going to just start bringing them back again. So I don't know what the solution is. We really don't have anyone designated as or a
Boat constable.
department or anybody designated to enforce that particular part of our regulations.
Well, let's suppose we set out a time, and just like beach cleanup, we set out a time where we went around and identified the boats that were there illegal and just arranged with the harbor master to tow them away. That would certainly get people's attention. Take it a little bit more seriously, especially if they had like a like a parking thing, if they had to pay a fine to get their boat back out. That would really do it. John, what do you have?
I think that to me, there's a couple issues that I just want us to, I don't want to be in the enforcement business. Even in a state with strong gun control, I don't want to. Two, there's an issue of equity that cuts two different ways. One way is there are people that have paid the money to have their kayaks or whatever on the racks. And it's not fair to them if other people get to leave their kayaks on the beach without it. On the other hand, there's as I said, it cuts different ways. The person who is here for 3 weeks may not be in a position to get a position on the rack, but would still wants their kayak or boat down on the beach. Our central concern, though, has to be the protection of the beach. So I think this issue of equity, which haunts me, shouldn't necessarily be prominent in our discussion. But it's being the enforcement agent. I mean, people don't like us as it is.
What have you got me involved with, John?
So I think it's absolutely right. If nobody loses their boat, or not lose it, but have their boat hauled away and have to pay $50 to get it, maybe we should ask someone to invent one of those things that they put on car wheels when you don't pay parking tickets.
Yeah.
That's attached to the boat, so they can't use the boat
Oh,
until.
that'd be pretty easy. You just
Like a
attach
boot?
an anchor to it with,
I don't want to
with a
be the
lock.
person doing it. I don't want to be the person doing it.
Well,
Yeah.
we should learn a little bit what the Wellfleet Conservation Trust does, and Michael knows that, and it's been fairly effective. Is that correct, Michael?
It's on Old Wharf Point, it's been reasonably effective in the sense that we have a rack, we have people pay, they get spaces on it. The issue is often shellfisher people and also boat owners with moorings have the right to leave their boats on the beach, not on the resource, but on the beach. And we keep nudging the harbor master to give out the signs, the labels for people with moorings and with grants, so we can at least tell who is whom. Had a little bit of success on Old Pier Road by I just attached signs to boats that were on our Conservation Trust land, and people have moved them to the beaches. So that was successful. But we keep coming back to this. There is in the recreational department someone who inspects the racks. And if they could get a source of income to enhance that person's pay or to compensate, then you would have someone who was employed to do the kind of patrolling that we're talking about.
They might need body armor.
So, I mean, we can patrol and we do enforce, but it has to be with the harbor master because we don't have the tools to remove these things from the beach. Obviously, a sunfish or.
And we've talked to Will, and he seems very agreeable to this. He's relatively new, but
Yes.
again, I think if we organize a sort of a push at the very beginning of the summer or in the late spring, when people are arriving, and sort of get the patterns set up, that's what we seem to keep coming back to. Is in the middle of winter, there's not so much of an issue, but if we can get people habituated and aware in the late spring, very early summer, with Will on board and the Suzanne's assistant or whatever he is, someone I think that was John or Jack, who is supposed to be patrolling the racks, we might be able to get some sort of momentum.
Hillary, would the new hire, the Conservation Commission new hire, the like Doug replacement, be able to have this on his plate, at his or her plate, as a part of their job description to
it wouldn't be
identify and then talk to the harbor master about things, putting a little sticker on the boat, giving them some time, and then if they don't comply, get the harbor master to remove them. I mean, that's the only thing that's going to work.
Yeah, it should be kept in mind that leaving the boats, I've never left a kayak on a beach or a canoe. That's just a convenience, that they're too lazy to take it and put it in their driveway or whatever. I mean, how'd the boat get down there? They had a rack of some sort on their car, evidently. It's convenience shouldn't enter into this particular situation.
If we had more thieves in town, people wouldn't leave their kayaks just on the beach. Just on that one.
See, if it weren't a gun control place, you could just shoot a hole in each one.
There it is.
We warned you, boom. No, that's should we care if nobody likes us? I'm still stuck on the nobody likes us part.
I mean, they're not gonna like us anymore over time, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, hey. As long as they don't get militant, then it's okay.
Well, they will.
Yeah,
I mean, so Barbara, to answer your question, we can certainly look at it, but you know, when push comes to shove and we're straight out sort of going and walking all these places to look for boats is a low priority.
And then what do we, you know, the harbor master has a place to store them out at the sand pit.
Yes.
So we don't have such a place where we could take the kayaks if we confiscate them.
Yeah,
With the possibility they may be taken.
Yeah,
If
we
you-
have a fly.
Oh, you do have something, and they get it, short-term
Mhm.
rentals, 'cause they should just
Yeah.
use them, take them back.
So can we revisit this in the,
And
in the
also,
late spring?
Hillary, there may be AmeriCorps help for this too, maybe?
So it's gonna come down to really walking all these places where boats end up, which, you know, I mean,
There aren't that many when you think of it. There are a bunch of landings.
but think of the time. I mean, it comes down to a function of time and what that person is doing on
Right.
that particular day. Do we patrol it on every Tuesday or Monday? Like, we can't go there every day.
No, that wouldn't be necessary because a lot of these things just stay there all summer. No, it's true. It's true. They're there all summer. Or
well, I
from
mean,
months at a
it's-
time. It's not that they go in and out every day, and you wouldn't want to do it every day. So I would say,
Say in the summer, sure. I mean, it seems like a nice way to spend a couple hours.
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say is that if
Like,
we,
I don't.
if we're the ones that are concerned about it,
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm happy to like build it into our summer routine. You know, maybe one day a week we go and do this.
yeah,
Whenever.
and we all go to separate, but go ahead, John.
All right. Maybe I'm naive. I think a lot of people, despite all our signs and everything, don't really believe that it's wrong for them to leave their kayaks or whatever on the beach. So to let them know what they're doing is wrong and there might be negative consequences, like, you know, your car can be towed if you park here. If we had a sticker that had, you know, strong stickable material on the back that said, this vessel is in violation, you know, of Wellfleet town ordinance and must be moved, and just put those stickers on the offending boats, that alone may take care of a lot of the problem. Because then
We're assuming that all the shell fishermen have their boats listed or registered.
well, if you're a shellfishman and you don't list your boat, it's in violation because you haven't listed it. But then you would be able to go to the harbor master and say, look, I got a sticker saying I'm in violation, but I have a grant, or
Right.
who has a mooring, I got a sticker, but I have a mooring, and then you adjudicate that with the harbor master or whatever. But
Mhm.
I got a parking ticket when my parking sticker was valid. I just complained and it got taken away. But we need a sticker. We need something that adheres to the boat that says in violation. And that requires a certain amount of money to produce those, but not that much.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm having flashbacks to our previous stickering, and I am happy to engage in this again, but just know that it gets a little uncomfortable at times.
Right, but this year we did give out brochures to all the people who got beach stickers. Jordan Halloran actually produced those brochures for us. She's not on the call anymore, but she did that for us. And it explained some of the regulations. And I would say that there were fewer kayaks on King Philip this year than in the past. So some people read the brochure and were paying attention. So I think it's not going to be solved in one season or even 2 seasons, but I think we just have to keep at it. And
That's
just,
fine. I'm not adverse to doing it. I think I'd actually like it in the summertime to go on boat details. So So I will put this on the assistant's desk. They'll be starting in mid-December as one of the first things that we can talk about and plan for. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think John's idea of a strongly worded sticker has, especially if it's bright green or something that'll show up, is not a bad idea. And I think, it might just be that we go around and we take pictures. We slap stickers on boats that aren't supposed to be there, take a picture of them just so that we know. And that's our afternoon activity. Each of us do one landing or one
Well, now you're
place.
cutting into my boat and beach time.
That's
Well,
right.
you can do my shift. That's all right. I'll
Leon.
sacrifice my shift. No problem.
Let's,
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about it and figure out a way. It's all good. We'll find a way.
No, I think the sticker idea is not so bad. Okay, are we at an end right now? This would be a good time to take a short break before
But
the.
before you take a short break,
All
I
right.
have to tell you that I have to step away from our meeting at 5:30 to join the Board of Health and the Select Board for what I'm hoping will be a very short discussion on mask orders and mask mandates. And then I will be back.
Well,
You think that's
we're
short?
starting out with a lot of certificate of compliances. Have you?
Yes, I've looked at all of them and they're all fine.
Okay, well, that's good. No.
The only one with questions obviously is Black Pond Road.
Black
which
Pond
we
Road,
talked
right.
about, yeah.
Right.
And I
Okay.
forwarded you a comment from Tim Brady
Yes.
on that. Okay.
Yes. Okay, I move that we adjourn until 5 o'clock, which is like never mind. It's a minute.
And it,
It's a minute.
There went our break. Okay. I move then that we adjourn the business meeting.
Second, Michael.
Okay, Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Okay, so the business meeting is adjourned. We're about to start the hearings. The paragraph 18 through 25 is amended by Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2009, the Wetlands Protection Act, and to the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaws of July 1986 and its regulations of January 2000. The Wellfleet Conservation Commission will hold public hearings on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Let's see. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely. And we currently have on the commission, Barbara Brenessel, John Kumbler, Marty Murphy, Ben Fairbanks, and Mike Fisher, and Leon Shreves. So full crowd. First hearing that we're going to look at is the certificate, application for certificate of compliance for 479 Black Pond Road, map 4, parcel 38. Is there anybody here to represent that?
There is.
Good
We have Tim Brady here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Brady from East Cape Engineering, and I'm not sure if one of the or two of the property owners may be on the line with us. And I want to apologize for any confusion that might have happened at the last meeting. I was not able to make that, and trustfully or hopefully it didn't cause too much confusion. I do understand that there were some questions about the driveway that's on the opposite side of the road from the pond that services or used to service the cottage. I did get an email from the owners today that I forwarded to you or to Hillary, and I believe that she has forwarded it to you guys. I don't know whether you've all gotten it or whether you want me to just go over quickly what that email said.
We received it.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
received it.
Okay.
And so I think the salient point was that you were not blocking the driveway because people use it to turn around. Is that correct?
People use it to pull off so that traffic going in the other direction can keep going. It's not really suitable for turning around. It is
see.
suitable for just pulling off, letting a car pass, backing out, and continuing on down the road. It doesn't provide any access to that cottage any longer. You used to be able to get there two ways, from Black Pond Road and from Slough Pond Road, but it has been blocked off at the top. You cannot drive through. So anybody going to that cottage knows that they have to go on Slough Pond Road rather than on Black Pond Road. So it's not used as a through driveway any longer. It's just used to pull off. And I think that in the email, it says the oil truck, he pulls in there to fill the oil tank. And that's the only thing that it's actually used for at this point. They did also, in the email, people used to pull off on the right-hand side of the road as you're going in, or the pond side of the road. And the owners have actually put up a little barricade to limit that, which is beneficial to the bank. And so people now just pull into the lower driveway when they need to pull off. And I was up there recently. It was after a storm. And I was surprised how I had to pull off the road 3 or 4 times to get as far as the cottage, just because of the amount of people going up and down there. So it is used a little bit. As I understand it, the DPW is the one who actually maintains the road. But I think the way that it's blocked off now and the use that it provides is better than it was for the environment in moving that parking area away from the top of the bank. And it does provide a safe way for people to pull off and allow cars to pass.
I walk there a lot, and I've observed cars parking up almost at the cottage, not the old parking area in front, not going in front of the porch, but parking up on the driveway. So I think there needs to be some kind of a barricade part way up. So yes, people can move up there and let other people
Yep.
pass. But people have been parking right near the porch at the top.
I hear
have
what you're saying.
photos.
Yep.
I have photos.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I was concerned about. I thought that driveway was to be abandoned and roped off at the bottom.
Well, there was really no discussion as to how it was to be blocked off or abandoned.
Mhm.
I know that the owners would not be adverse to what you're describing, putting something halfway down the driveway so that people could still pull in there. The oil truck could still pull in there. It could be used occasionally. I don't think they'd have any concern with doing that.
Okay, even if it was something that the oil truck could remove and get up further, that's fine. But I think
Okay.
that I've seen cars parked there all spring,
Okay.
where they shouldn't be. So.
Yeah, I know that I guess I shouldn't say anymore. I don't know anymore. The owners have told me that everybody accesses it on the upper level, but things may go on there when they're not there.
When they're
the
not
owners
there.
are not there. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. We would like to ask that you issue your certificate of compliance, and we will go ahead and do that. You can make that a condition of the certificate if you want, but the owners are looking for the certificate at the earliest convenience.
Well, they've had, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we should give them the certificate of compliance, but I think we should condition it on not just some sort of structure, but what I would like to see is actual planting halfway up the driveway so that when they have parties and things, the whatever there gets moved and people are parking up there. Most of the oil trucks have fairly long extended
Yeah.
pipes to get to it. So if you put plantings, trees, bushes halfway up the driveway, I would feel comfortable. Okay with issuing the certificate, but
I agree. It should be something that can be removed. It should be permanent.
Leon,
Yes,
can I ask?
absolutely.
Another thing that's when I look back at the minutes, Can you tell us about the float, the dock, whether that has a Chapter 91 license?
I cannot tell you that right this second. I know that was something that was talked about earlier. I don't know right this second what the results of that are.
Okay, because this is the minutes from March 1st, 2017, and there was a letter from the Park Service. So it's been 4 years. And if there isn't a license, I would be very reluctant to issue a certificate of compliance.
Right.
The certificate of compliance has nothing to do with a license, and I would request that you issue the certificate. Issue the certificate regardless of the status of the license. Conservation Commission is not the body that deals with waterways licenses. If as a town, the town wants to pursue waterways licenses for these kinds of projects, that's fine. But that's not the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, and it shouldn't slow down the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
I agree with Tim, although I hate to, but it wasn't one of our conditions for this project. We have so many of these
It
documents.
was a question that was raised. It does get raised in other towns as well.
Mhm.
It's just not a Conservation Commission issue. Like I say, if the town wants to pursue waterways licenses for all the structures in town that should have waterways licenses, that's fine. That's an entirely separate project. You certainly could do that, but it's really not part of a Conservation Commission project.
I'm not going to make a fuss about this, but actually the dock is attached to the land and goes out, so it is part of our jurisdiction.
The waterways license is not.
Yes.
The waterways license is a state issued license, I'm sure you know. The
Yes.
dock is attached to the land, I agree. If anything were happening to that dock today, it would certainly be a Conservation Commission issue to review the dock, but not the license itself. That's separate. If
No,
we were
concur.
wanting to upgrade or replace our dock, we would be filing with you. I agree to that. But that's not what we're doing. So that would have to be at some separate time.
So I think we should have made it a condition, but that was before I was on the commission.
I have a question on the driveway. Is it paved? Is there the ability to plant it like we're asking?
I was going to mention that there is pavement there. It comes into the dirt road. There's dirt at the bottom of the driveway, but the driveway itself is paved. So if some kind of a barrier was required, that required plantings, it would require at least removing paving in the area where some plantings were going to go.
Planter box.
It could be a planter box. Yeah. If that was acceptable, that would be simple.
Does anybody else on the commission have anything to say about this?
I think a planter box would work if it was large enough and span the whole
Yeah,
driveway.
8 feet,
And
8
then
feet
you
wide
would-
or something,
you
make a
would-
little planter. Yeah,
And
I don't
wouldn't
think the
have
owners,
to dig up all that asphalt
Right.
right now.
that just
Right.
destabilizes the bank by digging up the asphalt.
So the original reason that the condition was that that driveway was not to be used is because it's so steep going up the bank and it's causing erosion? Or?
No, none of us were on the commission when the porch was put in. And I think it's related to the building of the porch there, which came out because they used to be able to go up the driveway into a parking area. But
Yeah.
the porch comes out so much that you can't drive there anymore without harming the slope. So I think they got, Hillary, I might be wrong, I wasn't on the commission at the time, but I think they got a permit to build the porch if they wouldn't drive in front of the porch anymore.
Well, there's also the stone steps, which I think you objected to, but that was part of the approval.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think if the commission wants a planter box, I think that's a good idea. If you want to, I would request that you would issue the certificate of compliance with a condition that says that a planter box is to be provided halfway up the driveway, suitable for preventing any further access or vehicle access up the driveway. I think that would be fine.
So Hillary, can we put conditions on a certificate of
Yes.
compliance?
We can.
All right. How much room, how long a space up that driveway do we need to accommodate the oil truck? Which is probably the largest vehicle. that
That's
would have to
probably
do
the
that.
largest, yeah, yeah. I'm going to say just I would say approximately halfway.
Mhm.
But we can adjust that after talking to the oil delivery guy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we want to accommodate that so it doesn't block off the road, but
Yeah.
not much more.
Understood.
Okay.
All right, Leon, I
Yes.
move that we issue a certificate of compliance with the proviso that a planter box spanning the driveway halfway up be installed.
Yeah, that it's permanent, not just something that can be slid off to the side.
Correct.
Except
Something
if there
something
were an emergency
substantial.
vehicle or something like that, perhaps somebody had to get to the hospital.
Yeah, but they do have another driveway. But yeah, I'm that would be a concern. You're right. Okay, I'll second that. Barbara, what do you think?
Let me recuse on this.
Okay. Marty,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Ben,
Yes.
John,
My conditions is that planter box be permanent.
right,
Not
I think-
something that can be moved.
right,
That's fine.
right.
Okay, yes.
And I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I've got so many people in front of me here that I have to look around.
So
Okay.
anyone who voted, it's Form 8B, certificate of compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Christine let us down this time. She didn't put what. She spoiled us.
Barbara, what's the form again?
8B.
8B.
Okay.
Okay, good. I think we've come to an agreement that meets the letter of the intent. The original intent. Okay, we will now address Cronin, who is applying for a request, has a request for a certificate of compliance for 66 LeCount Hollow Road, map 30, parcel 8. Is somebody here to represent that? Mr. Cronin, I see you there.
I see Jeff Cronin here.
Yep.
I'm here, but I'm just gonna let you guys talk.
Okay, so I can go ahead and talk about that.
Okay,
They
good.
had submitted their request for a certificate of compliance. There are two parts of the project that they did not do, and that was the proposed stone wall under the porch of the house, and they did not plant the 3 arborvitae and 4 hydrangea. Other than that, everything was done in compliance with what we had asked.
did they
We
remove the
did
6
actually
locusts?
plant the 3 arborvitaes.
You did plant the 3 arborvitae?
Yes.
Okay.
They were down a little lower in the area a little bit towards the next door neighbors.
Okay,
Good. Mike, did you have something you want to say?
Part of it as well was removing 6 locust trees. Was that done?
Yes, that was done.
So the only thing that didn't get done was the stone wall, which,
the stone wall and the hydrangea.
okay. So is that in any way weakening the ability for us to issue a certificate of compliance?
Nope, I think you can go ahead and issue it.
Okay, so moved. Is there a
Second,
second?
Michael?
Okay, Barbara. I think Barbara's gone. Oh, there's Barbara.
Yeah, I just got, everything froze, but now I'm back.
Good.
So are we voting on this now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Marty,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that's another 8B. Okay, next we have Thaler Island LLC, also requesting a certificate of compliance for 250 Meadow Avenue West, map 40, parcel 158. Okay. What are we complying to on this? Do you know, Hillary?
What are you complying to? It looks
Yeah.
like we have Mr. Thaler here and we have Seth here. And I thought we had heard from them at a previous meeting about this project, giving us an update.
And
I
on
could
the
be wrong.
screen, you should have what the project's about, I believe.
Right. Oh, so this was a soft solution.
It was the salt marsh, well.
Oh, yeah.
salt-
Was that was the presentation that we saw last time, right?
I don't know if it was our last meeting or the meeting before, but we did hear from them recently, and the
Right.
project is successful and it is working as it should.
Okay, so I move that we should, does anybody have anything to say before I make a motion? I'm just trying to clear out the stuff because I know we have some big stuff coming.
Hillary, it's Tim Brady.
Hi, Tim.
And in our request, we wanted to have a couple of ongoing conditions to continue the nourishing as necessary. Did you see that in my letter?
Yeah, of course. We would leave that on there anyway.
So as long as, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that the renourishment doesn't go away, but we're just signing off on
Yep.
the work that was done, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that looked pretty. Yes, John, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the question of the renourishment. Since we are re-looking at this renourishment generally, is there a way we can qualify our issue of the certificate of compliance without locking in existing renourishment plans in case as we relook at renourishment, we want to revise the amounts? Lori, can you give me some help here?
Yeah, well, this is a slightly different situation because these are the quar envelopes and we want to keep those covered with sand at all times. And they also have the high marsh there that's going to need maintenance. So I don't think we can waiver on the conditions at this particular site because it's actually crucial to the stability of the structures that they installed. So this particular site, I don't think we want to manipulate the conditions on.
And there are no shellfish grants in the area.
Okay, all right, I'm just raising the question.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yes.
I think we could always modify it if it's found that the renourishment that's mandated is affecting the resource in a negative way. You could always go back and change it. But I think for now, this has to be in place.
Okay, I disagree with Barbara because I'm imagining a situation where we decide and I'm not saying I won't vote yes for this, but just in general, where we say yes, and then in later years, we say, oh, this renourishment is not helping the resource, but is detrimental for the resource. And I imagine a lawyer, you could just imagine such a person coming before us and saying, you put as order of conditions that we renourish, that gives us the right to do it forever. That's my concern. In this particular case, I'm not that concerned, but
Right.
difficult
I think
for us to change once we say yes.
Yeah,
Because we've had that happen to us in the past.
Right, Hillary.
Yes.
In order to put sand to renourish like that, do you have to have permission to do that?
They usually notify us when it's being done. We can ask that they notify us prior to conducting any maintenance activities. I think that's reasonable.
Well, right. What I'm asking is, if I asked you for a list of all the people that are doing renourishment of beaches, could
Yeah.
you provide that?
Yes, of course. I was going to actually show that to you tonight and I forgot. No one reminded me. Yes,
Well-
we have that.
Okay, so then if we determined that one area was being over renourished, or we had to move that, we could bring that up directly to the people involved, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that should go some way to make John feel a little better about this.
Not at all.
Not at all, huh?
For the simple reason that someone will come before us and claim the right of unless we have specified a specific amount of sand, they can put as much sand they want if we say just renourishment. If we put a specific amount of sand, it would be very difficult for us legally to change that amount. I don't care if they notify us. My concern is how much sand gets put and what are we locking ourselves into? I don't want us to hold up on this project. I just want
Right.
to keep in mind,
This,
Okay.
we've got to have some way in the future
Okay.
to control.
I want to read our regulation. Coastal bank beach nourishment shall have no significant adverse impact to coastal wetland resource areas or the public interests and environmental values protected under the bylaw. Coastal bank / beach nourishment may be discontinued or reduced in scale and frequency only by a determination by the commission that the nourishment program is adversely affecting one or more of the above resources, interests, and values. So that seems to me that the Conservation Commission has the jurisdiction or the purview over this renourishment. We've allowed more nourishment. We've allowed less nourishment when it's not needed. So I think it's in our bylaws that we.
Right. So we know who the people are. We know who to contact if we want to change, and we have the right to change it based on science. One would hope.
Right,
Right.
right.
Okay.
Right, although John's point is well taken. It is well
It
taken.
is.
Mhm.
Okay.
So can I make a motion that we accept this request for certificate of compliance?
This is for 250 Meadow.
250 Meadow Avenue West.
Right, with. Okay.
Second, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes,
Marty,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? Okay, no. Okay.
All right,
That's
thank you
another-
all very much. Have a nice
Yes.
evening.
all right, Hillary's going to a meeting now.
May I ask,
yes.
may I ask a
just-
question, Hillary, before you go? This is a really quick one. I'm Richard Thaler, the guy who has the property. I have had an ongoing concern, which I addressed with Hillary, that several of the neighbors have not been complying with their sand nourishment and so we have to make up the balance. And I just would hope you guys would be aggressive in your enforcement, that our neighbors do what they're supposed to do, put the sand in. Because you guys remember there was litigation a long time ago because they didn't do that. They're supposed to behave. And I know Hillary looked into it, and I think there was at least one or two neighbors who were not putting their sand down. And it's just a request on my part.
Yeah. Well, if you suspect any of your neighbors are not doing it, and
I have addressed it with Hillary. You know
Yeah.
that, right, Hillary? I think I
Yeah,
did.
we sent them letters and citations. So yes, I'm fully aware of that.
Did they? Yeah, to my best of my knowledge, they still haven't done anything though.
I didn't get word that they did do something, but they have been issued citations. So the process takes time.
Okay, put some teeth into it, would you?
I don't want to lose my teeth.
we have to.
We're all on the same page on this, and we spent a fortune doing this, and I think this is a really nice plan, and I hope other people will do. But
I'm coming. I'm just trying to
they defeat us a little bit if they
get off
don't.
of the conservation
what they're
meeting. I'll be
supposed to do. Thank you, guys. Other than that, thank you very much.
there. I'll be there, bye.
Okay, let's
Okay, so the
Hillary.
next certificate of compliance, sorry, I've got to go quickly, but for Spear and Janice, and that was a landscaping project, and that is okay to issue as well.
Okay. I
All right.
move we issue a certificate
I'll be
of
back.
compliance
All right.
for Spear and Janice.
I
Second,
second.
Barbara. All right.
Okay, Barbara, you can second. All
I
right, so Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
and Leon, yes. It shows how much we trust our agent.
Mhm.
Okay, now those are out of the way. We now want to hear, the next hearing is for Baker, 35 Way 60, map 19, parcel 16, an NOI for renovation and addition to a single-family dwelling. Who is here to represent that? Is Mr. Baker here?
It's Patricia Baker, and David
Yes, Ms.
Little was supposed to talk, but my architect, Albert Fine, is here, who did the design and who's been very involved. So Albert will unmute himself and talk. Albert, do you
Okay.
want to?
No, let's hear from your architect.
Albert, unmute yourself, please, bottom left. Oh, boy, he's right over there. Albert, can you unmute yourself? Oh, boy. So, I'm so sorry. Albert, is there any way of you unmuting him by any chance from your controls?
There we
I think I just
Oh, there
got
he
it.
is, Albert.
He got it.
Okay.
He got it.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Fine, can you want to carry on the discussion on this?
Sure, I'll just make a simple statement. We are well aware it's a it's a very sensitive piece of land. We went through a review process to see who to hire. We like Ryder and Wilcox, so they were hired during the summertime. And I reviewed their work and I'm happy with their work. It's a 450 square foot addition to a 450 square foot house. There's a little bit of foundation and there's a few column footings. But we've tried to be very efficient and very careful about what we do here. So I'm happy to listen to how you people feel.
Leon,
Well-
may I ask a question?
Certainly, Michael, go ahead.
So last time, when we spoke to you about this, you were going to give us the total disturbed area, including the house, the patio, the deck, driveway. Have you provided that information?
I'm assuming that Ryder and Wilcox provided that to you. And
No, I don't believe they did.
All right.
Secondly, the requirement is for showing alternatives, and there is certainly an alternative analysis and projection for the planting plan, but there's nothing in the Ryder and Wilcox about alternatives.
And could you be specific into alternatives as to what?
Well, there are always in these applications supposed to be alternatives. So for example, moving the house back, having a smaller footprint, raising the house. Usually they end up saying that the only viable alternative is the one that they proposed, but they have to provide alternative models for us to consider.
Well, yes, we will do that, but I want to point out that raising a foundation is fairly.
It doesn't have to be a good alternative. It just has to be identified and explain why it's not such a great idea.
Not a problem.
And taking it
For example,
seriously.
just putting, for example, just putting the addition on another side of the house, why that might not work as well. But we're really concerned
That's
about
easy.
the amount of disturbance in the area, which was not provided.
Right.
I think the proposal is modest. I think putting the addition on grade the way it is, I don't have a lot of problems, but it is in our buffer zone. It's between the 50
Hang on one second.
and 100.
The addition is not on grade.
The addition, no, it's not on grade. It's with the grade. I mean, it's
No.
underground, like
It's elevated. The addition is elevated.
Mhm.
oh,
it's
I'm
with-
sorry.
But it's within the
I-
100-foot buffer.
Yeah,
I missed. Yeah, it's between the 50 and 100, and that's our area of jurisdiction.
No, I
But we're
understand.
concerned about all the hardscape and disturbance.
Okay, David Little has joined.
So that's the only thing I was looking for, is the amount of disturbance in the area of our jurisdiction, which is basically,
Well, it's the entire
Okay.
house.
David Little is on the call
Yep,
now, so
Dave-
maybe he can also.
David, would you
speak.
like to address the commission?
Yeah, thank you, Leon. I'm sorry I'm late. I just left a planning board meeting in Eastham. There are no grade changes proposed at the site. So you
No,
are in fact,
I misspoke. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
saw how it was sort of built into the grade. That's what I meant to say.
right.
But I'm just concerned, it looks like the gravel parking and the shed are outside of our jurisdiction, but everything between the coastal bank and the 100 are within our jurisdiction. So we wanted to just have that number.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I provided everyone in their packet was a plan with a red line showing the buffer zone on this property that for the last plan that came before the commission, which was from the edge of the wetland. And I think it's important because it was brought up at the last hearing that we have this patio and the walkway and all this work that was done.
Right.
But, and this was by the prior owner, obviously, but it was done without knowledge that in 2014, a new flood zone was adopted into this area.
Right.
And so the existing patio and wall, I think, well, the applicant, Patricia Baker, did not do it. I don't think the owners knew they were doing anything wrong because they were working off a Jason Ellis plan that was used for a septic upgrade. And so not until this year, when we were hired by Patricia Baker to come out and actually trace the flood zone and determine the coastal bank, I don't think anyone was aware of what the buffer zones were on the property. So we've been very careful to site everything within disturbed areas, landward of the 50-foot buffer, trying to provide access from the proposed deck that would come down and meet the existing path that presently is on the site. And there would be, we've added in the construction notes that there would be gutters and downspouts connected to dry wells or crushed stone at the roof drip line to properly infiltrate any stormwater runoff. And I must say, it's a very modest house. It's a very modest addition. And with respect to the comments from earlier, I was hoping with the Ponderosa mitigation plan, which essentially results in a completely naturalized area between the new 0 to 50-foot buffer, that the commission might find this would be a reasonable project. So I'm sorry I'm late, Mr. Chairman. I didn't realize you would be going through everything so quickly.
That's my job. John, you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the owner. This is a small house and it's a modest addition. And I think given the modesty of it, we should have a certain amount flexibility. It's not, everything is just outside of the 50, but it's all with 100. My question is, I'm trying to see to what extent we can reduce the footprint as it approaches the 50. Is there a reason that the deck can't be put to the south of the addition as opposed to the west of the addition?
No, I think that's something we could look into, John.
And again, I think if you could perhaps reduce a little bit of the size of the deck. I'm sympathetic for a deck. I think the deck is they're not going to enjoy it very much unless we get our mosquito situation under control. But deck is appropriate for this kind of modest structure. Give them a way of appreciating the outside without a big impact. I just would like it moved a little. Other than that, I'm okay with this proposal if they could move the deck. But that's where I am for this.
So, Mr. Little, perhaps you came in after this, but last time we asked for a total disturbance, and even though it might have been done outside of the 100-foot, now it's within the 100-foot. So a total for the patio, the gravel, the decks, the house, the porch, all of that.
The gravel parking is out of our.
It's out.
Is out of our.
No, but there is a gravel walk.
Oh, right, and the patio.
Right.
I got
right.
you. Right.
I thought I was
Can I
dotting
just
my
ask
eyes.
when the house was built?
In the 40s, wasn't it?
It's a very old house. This predates Conservation Commission, predates the Wetlands Protection Act.
I think it was 1940 to 1944 is when it was built. I think around 1940.
Okay, so we can allow a total alteration. We can allow, not necessarily give permission, up to 3,000 square feet within the 100-foot buffer zone.
And
So that's why we're looking for that little number. It's just to comply with our regulations. I agree with John. It's a model proposal.
Yeah.
I don't have any real problems with this at all, except I want to make sure that it's within our allowed.
Right.
Understood, Hillary, and I can provide those numbers.
Okay.
I know that we will comply.
Right. And I think that we want to make sure that that's on the official plat for the property. Because
sir.
in the future, we're going to have to look at it again someday in the future.
Yes, sir. I understand that.
Well, if it's
Leon? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
John. Go ahead, John.
I don't mean to cut Michael off because I was going to say if the addition and the disturbed area is less than what we
3,000.
I'm willing to go support this project.
Right. Michael, your
no,
turn.
that was the same thing.
Okay. So we can accept this with a provision that when calculated, the
No, Leon, John Kumbler asked for an alternative analysis in moving the deck and,
Oh, right. Okay.
So I think I
Go ahead,
hate to
Barbara.
continue these things forever, but that quick, those two quick things, the calculation and looking at whether the deck can be removed or the addition can be, whatever John said. Reduced or whatever.
No, I'm comfortable with that, Barbara. I think it's in both of our best interest.
Okay. So we'll. It sounds like I'm moving that we continue this to look at alternatives and to get these the projected areas of disturbance onto the site plan.
Yep, and then I think we're good to go.
Okay.
So I would second that, Leon.
Okay. Is that okay with
So,
you?
we have to ask David when
Mr.
he
Fine?
wants to come back.
As soon as possible, please.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like
Next
to,
meeting-
I'd like to put this to bed before the holidays, not the
Sure.
Thanksgiving holidays, but the Christmas. the
Yeah.
other week.
Well, we should be
Good
able to do
idea.
it. Okay, so what is
Christine,
that?
are you on? Tell him when he has to get that done.
December 1st.
Oh, nice. That's before Christmas. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to continue this until December 1st. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes, yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. Okay,
Thank-
we're
thank
closing
you
in
very
on this.
much.
We'll get it. Okay, great. The next hearing is for Betty Bat Realty Trust Alonzo, 90 Ring Road, map 41, parcel 96 and 7, NOI to construct an extension to a bedroom. Is there someone to speak to that? Looking for a Betty Bat. Now, Alonzo, who's the?
David LaJoy was represented them last time, and he's not here.
David, are you here? I don't see David. Mike, do you remember?
Yes, there were a number of issues about building within the 50, in fact,
Yeah.
extending over into the resource and exceeding the amount of maximum disturbance. So there are a number of significant issues.
Yes.
And I think all we can do is continue it.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that's true. It doesn't sound like they're ready for it. As I recall, it was an indefinite, wasn't it? An indefinite?
Well, it's on the agenda, so we must have had it just for one meeting.
All right, so I move we continue this to December 1st. Would anybody like to second my motion?
Second, Michael.
Okay, Barbara,
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Oh, John, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, John.
It's the date that bothers me. Can we just continue until the representatives can
Yeah, we can indefinitely continue
paperwork?
it.
I mean, because it's silly to have this pop up again next time if they're not ready.
That's true. Okay. I move then that we continue this indefinitely.
I accept that as the seconder.
Okay, Barbara
Yes, that's fine with me.
and Marty, you're okay with it?
Yes.
Mike, I take it you're okay with it?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
All right, and John?
Yes.
Okay, and Leon, yes. So that's continued as well. Okay. This is the big event. Mordecai, 374 King Philip Road, map 35, parcel 182, an NOI. Work on docks, piers, revetments, dikes, etc., coastal and inland. Proposed project is to install a living shoreline. We went and visited that place this morning. And is there someone to represent that?
Yes, Ann Soboleski, I'm here on behalf of the Mordecais. And with me is Mark Burgess from Shorefront Consulting and Seth Wilkinson from Wilkinson Ecological Design.
Great, great. So why don't you, as I recall, in reading your documentation, you want to change the revetment that's there. You want to do some extensive planting as well as core rolls. Is that correct? This is a soft.
Right, that is correct. And I should say at the outset that this project is conceived to be a project that is joint with the neighboring property owner. However, there's still some discussion that's ongoing about the scope of that project. So that has not been submitted yet. And what we would really like to do tonight is sort of explain the work that's proposed for the Mordecai's property. And then in reality, we're probably going to be asking for a continuance so that that's continued until after the neighbors have also filed, so it can be seen as a cohesive whole.
That's great. That's very, that's correct. So why don't we go ahead and go through this? And because I know that we're going to have some questions. We had an earlier discussion about the effect of renourishment from this area and how it affects the shell fishermen down current. So.
And at that point, I will turn it over to Mark.
Oh, good.
Yes, for the record, this is Mark Burgess with Shorefront Consulting. Can everybody hear me okay, or is it too loud?
Louder.
Louder. Yeah.
Okay, hold on, because last hearing I had to turn my mic down.
Yeah.
Let me see how to do that.
We're older guys, so.
Much older than me.
Speak for yourself.
I'm 62, not afraid to say it.
Good.
Does anybody know how to go into the settings here to change that?
Yeah, I think that if you go to, let's see. Oh yeah, down where that says mute or not in the lower left.
Yes, I have it. Is that any better? Is that any better?
A little better.
Okay. Is that any better?
That's better.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, we're good to go.
Okay, cool. Okay, so there's a vast history with this site, and several various solutions have been tried, anywhere from fiber rolls to nourishment to the revetment, etc. The existing revetment is curved the way it is because that's where the shoreline used to be when it was done. If you look at the narrative, you'll see that I included lots of historical photos of aerials. And I would say, if I was going to sum it up, is that the angle of the shoreline the angle of the shoreline that faces west hasn't really changed. It's just proceeded down the beach, and people have revetted their properties as that erosion has just continued. We tried additional nourishment at this site. We found out that 800 yards is too much, and 200 yards is probably not, it's not enough to keep up with the erosion rate. So we struggled with what to do, but I approached Seth and looked at his other project that you guys have just reviewed, and the circumstances of the sites are, I'm going to say, extremely similar. No two are exactly alike, but the sequence is really close. The fetch is the same. The angles to the west are about the same. Everything, the two sites are extremely similar. So what we're proposing is I thought it would be a good idea to soften that, what is now like a flip curve on the revetment, and bend it back to match the natural angle of the shoreline. That'll require reworking about 20 feet of the existing end of the revetment that is cupped, if you will. And then what we want to do is extend the revetment to within 15 feet of the property line. And in doing so, the toe stones will start at that 15-foot offset. So what you see will be further away from the property line, but none of the revetment will be closer than 15 feet to the property line. So once we extend it, then we're just going to bend it and turn it into the bank and carry that top elevation till it meets the new grade, and everything will be blended in. From that point to the east, we're going to start with the same type of living shoreline solution that Seth has come up with. Seth will be explaining that in a minute here. So what we're hoping is that any nourishment that needs to be put at the site, like the other one on the Lieutenant Island, will be to maintain the cover over the rolls. And we have to put any continuous nourishment on the beach. It can be in front of or seaward of the living shoreline. And perhaps once the shoreline is stabilized, that the 200 yards would be enough to maintain the processes there. I'm still working with National Heritage on this. Amy understands everything quite well. I got a draft of conditions from her today that all seem fine, but she hasn't formalized her letter yet. So yes, while we have a DEP file number, we don't officially have a resolution or a permit constraint from national heritage, so we would at least be continuing for that. And then I agree with Anne that, so what happened was, this was always conceived as the joint project. We've been working together with the Pragers for like a year, but the end configuration on the Prager's property has been modified or is in the process of being modified. So that held up permitting their side of the joint project. So we can discuss Mordecai. I can tell you, without going in any great detail, that the living shoreline will start just as it is on the Mordecai property, just as it's shown on the plan. The question only is how far to the right we're going to go, and how that end configuration and tapering will work. So when that happens, I have to come up with a separate plan, and we'll put a separate filing in. And that's why we'd like to continue this until that happens, so that you guys can look at a completed joint project.
Right. Who owns the existing coastal structure, the revetment? Who owns that?
That's entirely on the Mordecai's property.
Oh, okay.
You'll see, you can see the
So-
property line. It's right around where the drift fence is. Barbara?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
Barbara.
that we asked the AmeriCorps person to get to Hillary to get the history of the project, because I don't know which of these houses is pre-78, and I think the Mordecai's might not have been, but it was still permitted. But I just want to throw out some concerns. We wanted to know the history because we thought that was important. But I'm concerned about the extension of the revetment 10 feet. I think I would love to have the engineers figure out a way to use whatever revetment is there and sort of taper it into the living shoreline. I like the living shoreline idea. I've been monitoring that area for 20 years for diamondback terrapin nesting, and we've lost a lot of sand there in that area. So I think that if this living shoreline could help to preserve some of that habitat, that would be great. But I don't want more rock revetment. If you can use what's there and just move it and taper it and not add to the rock revetment and in that project. We're also having a lot of issues with the shell fishermen there about the sand renourishment. So that needs to be taken into consideration.
Okay, so I can help address those now if you like.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the reason for extending the revetment is because while it is where it is, the erosion is coming up behind it. We call it flanking. You guys are well familiar with that. But it's reached the point now where it's all the way up at the top of the hill. There's a small deck there, but that location is certainly within 40 feet of the foundation. So the idea to extend the revetment, which is within your regulations, to within the 15 feet, is to allow as much of that type of protection as we can to protect the corner of the house. The Mordecai house is in fact a pre-78 house. The Prager property is post-78, and that's why we can only do a living shoreline solution there. The living shoreline will go right up against the revetment and start from there. So the Mordecais are urgently seeking as much protection as possible because the situation out there is urgent. I'm not going to say it's grave, but it is urgent. We need to do something, and we need to provide as much protection for the house as possible. Again, it's within the regulations, and the exposed stone, by the time you put the toe stones in, and by the time they come up to where it's exposed, the revetment will look like it's a lot further away than 15 feet from the property line. So I think those are the two things you said, right, Barbara? Am I correct?
Yes, I think you've answered my questions. I had one more, but I'll let other people speak.
Okay.
Leanne, I have one
Go
small
ahead, Mike.
question. So
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out from the plans whether the new living shoreline, the Coil rolls, are right at the point where the beach ends and the slope begins, or are they out from it? In other words, is there going to be an advance toward the water by this? Is it going to be the same, or are you going to retreat?
Okay, I can let Seth start to describe that, but it's a combination. The shoreline will be moved or positioned so it's above the mean high water line and close to the existing base of the slope. But while we want to stabilize the slope and make it a little bit less than it is now, it won't be right up against the base of the slope. So we'll be working with the existing conditions to position it accordingly. If there aren't any questions more about the revetment, I'll hand it over to Seth and he can go through the rest of the design.
Okay, Seth, why don't you continue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mark. For the record, Seth Wilkinson Ecological. As Mark said, we're very fortunate that you were here. You just happened to be hearing the certificate of compliance request for 250 Meadow Ave West, which was really the inspiration for this project. In fact, I met Miss Mordecai when I was on the beach for the first time at the Thaler property, just checking in on the project, and we had a nice conversation about it. So it really is an extraordinarily similar concept. We're just trying to put some of those natural functions back in place. We're trying to hold that existing sediment. We are proposing it very close to the 2020 profile, which is on record. And those lines, if you zoom into the plans, you can see them. They're a little faint, but they are there. The 2017 profile, which is much further seaward and very dramatic, and then last year's profile. So the idea with bioengineering is you're just simply trying to hold those sediment still, so the plants can take root, and you can stabilize the embankment naturally. We're using essentially dead plant materials in the form of coconut fiber held in place with earth anchors, and then constructing a reinforced salt marsh just to seaward of that toe that helps to sort of limit the regular tidal interaction with the fiber rolls, which you may have seen from other projects. They don't tend to perform very well when they're in daily tides, but salt marshes, thrive in that environment, and that's what we're looking to have, those marsh species right in that upper reaches of the astronomical tidal range. And we've proposed a series of native species in there, and you really couldn't, I certainly couldn't find another site which is as similar to 250 Meadow Ave West on Lieutenant's Island. It's at the southern end of an extensive coastal engineering or system of coastal engineering structures. Most of Indian Neck is if not all of it is hardened, and as is the case with Lieutenant's Island. And so we're trying to sort of address that with a robust but soft non-CES approach. This DEP has determined many times that in every single time that this has been proposed in other communities, as well as in Wellfleet, that it's not a CES. And we're encouraged with the performance that we saw at 250 Meadow Ave West, and we're excited to put it in use here. Happy to answer any questions.
Leon, I'm sorry.
Who's that?
Leon's muted.
No.
Barbara, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I just want to say that I think it's a much preferred solution. I think I see it working in other places. I'm just concerned about the extent of the adding to the revetment and if that could be engineered another way, but I think it's definitely an improvement. And I've seen a lot of change in that area in the last 20 years. I mean, they've lost so much sand, they've lost so much of their properties. So anything like this that we can support, I think is a good thing. But I just want to try to minimize the extension of the rock revetment as much as possible.
Mike?
Yes, can you tell me a little bit more about this high tenacity mesh and whether you're using steel cables as well?
Sure. Yes. So they're galvanized steel aircraft cable. Sometimes fiber rolls are installed with stainless steel cable. That's not our practice. I think that's more a longer design life than is needed. Any boater knows even galvanized steel, especially if it's not too far from Wellfleet Harbor, will oxidize, over the period of about 20 to, 50, actually, I would say in Wellfleet 15 to 30 years. Normally I say 20 to 30 years, but so that is going to chemically degrade through oxidation and reduction. And then the best way I can describe the mesh is that it is, if you're familiar with fiber rolls, it's the same product that the fiber rolls are manufactured with. For these really high energy velocity zones, we need to use the highest density. So you need to be able to pack a lot of coconut fiber into the individual rolls. The density is 9 pounds per cubic foot. And in order to do that, you do need a synthetic liner. It's like a tennis court net type thing, or badminton net maybe. And that's strong enough. Unfortunately, the natural fibers aren't strong enough to pack that coconut fiber into without bursting. And so then we found that by just sort of layering that net on the exterior, we also it can act as a net and prevent any of those fiber rolls from leaving the site. The cables can get loosened in a major nor'easter. None of that happened. Just to give you some perspective, that recent nor'easter, which was high intensity, but fortunately at the lower course of the tidal cycle. So no impacts to 250 Meadow Ave West or any of other Cape projects. So, it takes something certainly more intense than that storm that we had, which was intense enough in my book. But the cables can get loosened as sand can still migrate at a slower rate, from behind the fiber rolls out into the intertidal area. This is not a hard structure. It's not a CES, so sand can move between the fiber rolls. And when that happens, you need to go and tighten the cables. By having the netting over the surface and having a strong netting, it really eliminates, because every single anchor point, and on a project of this scale, there will be hundreds of anchor points. If they all pass through that netting and just assure that you won't, because we don't want a fiber roll out in the flats or in the marine system. That's not appropriate in my book. So we really want to make sure they stay right where they are, and they can be maintained as soon as it's safe to go back out after the storm.
Well, you're certainly the expert. Have you ever done this kind of a project without cables?
I don't believe we ever have, and unfortunately, but a lot of other firms have, and the results have just not been very, very good, even in low energy environments. The other choice is to use wooden friction stakes, like a survey stake or something a little beefier, a little thicker. And you just rely on the friction of the sediment to hold those stakes in place, and then usually tie some sort of rope to hold them in place. And what's happened, time and time again, and there's unfortunately there's anecdotes all over the Cape and Islands of this, is pretty much the first significant storm, all those fiber rolls are usually released well into the system. And so we've intentionally never installed in that way.
And this is a different process than some others that we've seen from you, where it's sand-filled coil rolls?
That's correct. Yes, these coconut. These are so if you've seen like the sand-filled envelopes, which we've done in a few locations, most recently on Chiquesset Neck. Those are like 4 feet in diameter, roughly 3 to 4 feet. These are 18 to 20 inches in diameter, and they're solid coconut fiber. So there's no sand inside these rolls. It's totally coconut fiber. And that actually leads back into the earlier question, because they're not terribly heavy like sand, they're actually semi-buoyant. They'll float in water. And so when this goes underwater, you actually need to tether them to the ground, because they'll try to float away like a sailboat or something.
And then could you expand on that? Why not use sand-filled coir bags?
In this location, I think there's a couple of reasons. In a significant storm event, the sand-filled envelopes are designed to release their sediment, and when you don't have a salt marsh immediately, to seaward, that's not a problem. It's just more sand on the flats in the intertidal area. When you have a marsh, we know from the scientific literature, 3 to 4 inches of sand accretion in a salt marsh is something that a marsh can attenuate and grow through. Sometimes they can do more, but the volume of sediment from a sand-filled envelope could be considerably more at a major storm event. So you could bury your salt marsh to a degree that it could kill it. The other aspect is there is a different design life. You would have heard me talk about sort of anywhere between 1 to 2 years if it's a really bad storm, but generally 3 to 5, as much as 7, but I've rarely seen a sand-filled envelope last longer than that if it's been challenged by a storm. And we're doing an extensive planting above this area, and we also want to make sure that that can really get established. Given the erosion rates that we've seen here, I would see a pretty short sand-filled envelopes being fairly short-lived, and I'd be worried about the marsh to seaward.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We can pass it back to Ann. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, I want to go back to the point that Michael just raised. I know that Mr. Wilkinson is the sand-filled envelopes are not preferable in this situation, but I have been very much surprised at how successful Mr. Wilkinson's sand-filled envelopes and planting behind have been in other locations in our town. And I have to say, I'm prejudiced towards the sand-filled envelopes. I think that what they release into the environment is more benign. I've seen some fairly significant storms of sand-filled envelopes, and they still held themselves. So I would like the project to seriously think about the possibility of substituting these floatable living shorelines with the sand-filled envelopes with planting behind. I'm cognizant of the issue of sand leaching out of them in storms. Again, looking at his other projects, I haven't seen that much sand leaking out. The disadvantage, of course, of the sand-filled envelopes is you have to repair them. They have a shorter lifespan, perhaps, but that may be a cost that the environment needs to, that it's well worth paying for the environment.
Maybe that could be looked at as an alternative analysis, John.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. A very serious consideration of the sand-filled envelopes.
What's your
say that as a person who was very skeptical of the sand-filled envelopes when it was first proposed to us, but have been amazingly surprised at the success.
So John, what's your specific concern about is it just that you haven't seen any history of the solid core rolls?
Yeah, I mean, it's the material that the coconut fibers are wrapped in. It's the steel anchors.
Anchors too, yeah.
The anchors. It's just
okay.
The fact that they do float is a concern for me. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would not have said this because I would have been more skeptical of the sand-filled envelopes. But in this sense, Mr. Wilkinson's success argues for the sand-filled envelopes, as far as I'm concerned.
You're a victim of your own success, Seth. Barbara, did you have anything? Oh, I'm sorry, there's Ben.
Yeah, I just had a response to John in the form of a question for Seth. Is the success on the proposed reinforced high marsh contingent on using these core logs as opposed to the sand-filled core envelopes? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I'd have to say that's my opinion, and I can I can provide the commission with a more data-driven response rather than just my professional opinion talking about the volumes within the sand envelopes, and we can, I think we can have a fuller discussion about that next time. But I do have, concerns specifically with regard to the marsh immediately to seaward. I have seen envelopes, deflate, and I think we've been, we've had some, as I said earlier, that was a major, 3 weeks ago, we had a major storm, but it did fall in the low course of the tide. It really couldn't have been timed better in that regard, and that really helped us. We had some projects that didn't even lose their sand nourishment because there was just so much less water than it would have been 2 or 3 weeks later. So I just have the benefit of 20 plus years of seeing a lot of envelopes deflate in a single storm event. And that would be if the sand ends up on the marsh, that could be the end of the marsh. You never know where that sand's going to go in a storm. It depends on the specific characteristics of that storm event, the duration, the wind direction, the oscillation, all of those factors. But it's too big of a threat for me to we looked at that in our sort of internal alternatives analysis that we do with every project when we're developing a preferred alternative, but we can absolutely provide some more information. I'm not saying it's off the table. We didn't come to that same conclusion, but I can fill in some of the data points for the commission on why
Okay.
that was.
Yep, that would help us understand. Mark?
Yes, as an ocean engineer, I'm formally trained in coastal processes and sediment transport and all sorts of fun things like that. I do want to share Seth's concern, because some of the things that the commission's already stated was that excessive nourishment on the beach had a downdrift impact, a negative downdrift impact on shellfish. We did run into that one year when we overnourished the area. So a significant release of sand all at once would not only damage the marsh, but it could have a negative impact to the downdrift shellfish resources. But I also share his concern that if there was a somewhat catastrophic failure of these bags, then all of the work of all the plantings up above is gonna disappear.
Yep.
And would have to be redone. Yeah, the fiber rolls, you can replace individual fiber rolls. It's a very flexible installation as far as maintaining, and the way that these are anchored. I've seen the old school installations also. So the stakes and the twine, that does fine in a little to no energy situation, but those stakes only go a foot or two into the ground. So if that soil moves, they are all leaving. So that's why we do this. This is over 20 years of experience of gradually ramping up the designs so that they do withstand these natural processes. And they remember that the end goal here is to stabilize the base of the bank so that we can stabilize the rest of it. And we'd really rather do this once right and hopefully avoid a catastrophic failure.
Okay, good points.
Okay. Thank you.
Anne, would you like to say anything before we continue this?
Well, no, I would just say that this has been very helpful, and you've given us a lot of additional pieces of information that I think we're going to gather together and bring back to the commission. And again, we would like to request a deferment of the project until the neighbors project has been filed with you so that we could discuss the whole thing as one cohesive project.
Okay, so we'll continue this indefinitely since it may take a while for you. It won't be, rather than having this come up meeting after meeting and being continued because you still have some more issues. We'll continue it
If I may,
indefinitely.
maybe we could put it for the first meeting in January, because I'm hopeful that we would have a resolution by then.
Okay, we can target that. Christine, what would be the date on that? Let's see, January 5th. January 5th. That means that the information needs to be in a week before that.
Okay.
Okay, John?
It's just so that we don't end up having to put this on even later because of the discussion. I want to reiterate the point that Barbara made. I'm very concerned about the linkage together of the existing revetment to the living shoreline. and what additional materials are going to be brought to bear at that linkage. It would be much more comfortable with using what you have already in place and linking that into the living shoreline than building more. And I understand you want to build more, but this is going to be, I feel, in the future, an issue of a problem for us. So if you can anticipate that between now and when you come back and have perhaps an alternative that will make us feel more comfortable, I think it will save having this debate then and having you come back later from January. So I think you need to seriously think about that linkage and what you can do with the existing revetment rather than bring in more.
Okay, we can look into that.
Yep. Well, you've heard our feelings and sensitivities on this, so we have a good go forward position. And we'll look forward to hearing from you first thing next year.
So can I move that we continue until January 5th?
I'll second that. Barbara, what do you think?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Leon, yes. John?
Yes.
And did I leave anybody out? No, I don't think I did. Okay, so we're good to go until January the 5th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. This has been very interesting. Okay. Next, we have Bros, 46 Sandpiper Hill Road, map 22, parcel 6 on RDA to plant 6 4 to 5 foot eastern red cedars to the left side of the property as a replacement for the removal of 3 black locusts. We went and visited that area or that site this morning. Is there anybody who's Mr. McPhee?
Ken McPhee with Bartlett Tree Experts.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine, thank you. Does anybody in the commission have any issue with this? I think we looked
Leon,
at it. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Yes, I'm very sympathetic for the project. I only saw that 2 of the locusts were marked, and there seemed to be maybe 4 that were potentially to be removed.
Actually, there's 3, and they've been marked for about 4 or 5 months now, so it's possible that one came off. The large one to the left rear of the house, as you're looking from the driveway out to the harbor.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are 2 that are about 8-inch DBH that are directly rear of
those other 2 were marked. I just didn't see the sign.
Right, and we figured that the one that was leaning on the left there was probably the one you were looking at.
Yeah, that's our major concern right now.
Right, sure.
And are you going to use equipment to get these trees down?
No, everything would be done by hand. Come in, lower everything. There's a couple of trees that we can use for craning and tip tying. May use a small machine by Ditch Witch called a Zon 300. It's a stand-on machine with turf tires just to move the larger logs, but any of the smaller debris would be removed by hand.
And these will be flush cut?
Flush cut. There's no intent on stump grinding at all.
Or herbicide to prevent sprouting or anything.
No, the family specifically requested that nothing be done.
Yeah, I just want to apologize that you had to wait so late in this meeting for this.
You missed my Eastham meeting on the last agenda there. So
okay, all right. I mean, I think this is a reasonable proposal, and if there's no further discussion, or even if there is, I move that we approve RDA.
I second, Michael.
All right. John, you have a question?
I want to be clear on the plans that you're replacing with 6 cedars?
6 eastern red cedar. Yep.
I'm fine with this. I think it's a
southern
good
variety.
replacement. I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yep.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Barbara, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
John?
I'm saying yes, but I just want to throw one more note out that a tree doesn't replace a tree. Kinds of trees make a difference. In this case, I think we're okay with the red cedar, but we are cognizant of hardwoods, in this case, the locusts are nitrogen, pump nitrogen into the ground as opposed to take it out. So they perform different functions within the ecology. They're not actually equal, but in this case, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I just want that in there as a.
Now, all that said, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And what would that?
Identify if that's a -2 or 3, please.
Form 2. I'd have to look at the,
I don't think it's in the resource, but
it's in the buffer zone, I think. So it's, let me look.
it's within,
-2. I think it's a -2, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. It's a -3. It's not within the, it's in the buffer zone. I have to look at the map. I'm sorry. We have a map for this.
yes, but it's hand drawn.
Yeah, so I can't tell.
Yeah.
It's probably within the buffer zone, a -3. It's probably not within the resource, but I don't know if it's on the bank or the buffer.
It's in the 50-foot buffer.
Can I help any? Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, Hillary.
Welcome back.
So
I was Board of Health.
Very enlightening.
Okay.
So on Bross, we are trying to decide if it was a -2 or -3.
Okay.
We don't have a site plan. It's a RDA.
Bross, plant for, okay.
We approved it, but we don't know if it's a -2 or 3.
Okay.
Hillary, while you're here, can I say something?
Yes, I'm just gonna go to the health file and grab a plan. But go ahead, talk away. I can still hear you.
The issue on 375 King Philip Road,
Yeah.
which was the Mordecai one, we want the history of that. A lot of history going back that we need before we can really move forward.
Okay, what exactly do you want to know?
Well, I mean, we were told that the house, Mordecai property is pre-78. We want to make sure that's the case.
Okay.
So what kind of conditions were laid down when the revetment was put in? Where the revetment was supposed to be, and those kind of things, because this is I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't go forward. I think they've got a reason to go forward, and I think the living wall or living bank is a good idea, but I want to know the history of what's going on back there, and if there's conditions that may affect what kind of decisions we make.
And also, it's supposed to be paired with the Prager property next door, which is apparently not a pre-78 house, and yet there's a revetment. So those two will come in together, and if we can have the history of both.
Yeah.
And
The
Hillary,
the Prager house is post 78.
Exactly.
The
But they have a
Mordecai
revetment.
Yankelovich house is pre 78. That much I know. But getting back to the application at hand, just so we can move this along, then you can tell me everything else you want. It is within the buffer zone, so it's a
-3.
Yeah.
Okay, -3.
Okay.
The other question about that project is that there's a wall there that someone.
Ken, you're done.
All right, thank you. You guys all have a good night.
Thank you.
One of the shellfishermen said, someone told me that was built by the state. There's a little rock revetment out there.
Groin.
A groin.
Groin, like further, out towards the
Further west.
the harbor.
The east. Yeah.
Yes.
The west, actually. And that doesn't belong to any particular property. Where'd that come?
That was built by the state, right?
Right, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Right.
We think, we don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that too anecdotally, and I don't think we have any files on it.
Okay.
It's the
'Cause I've
Flying
looked.
Dutchman going.
Hmm. All right.
But we have the whole history for Yankelovich. I can get that out.
That's
I
okay
can't-
because they're indefinitely postponed.
Yeah,
Oh.
they're, yeah,
Okay.
they have to, well, we asked them to do some thinking and some more engineering, but also they don't have how the plan seamlessly fits with the next property, so.
Oh, with
They have to work-
Prager, you mean? With
Yeah, they
Prager?
have to work that, yeah, they have to work that out.
Okay, so then I will get the old Yankelovich stuff, which is rather deep, and see if I can figure out a way to scan it in. Maybe you just want the narrative because the
Yeah,
plan.
yes, because they
Yeah.
sent us with that a whole bunch of stuff about escrow and renourishment already in the,
Okay.
in the file.
Yeah, we just need to know exactly where we're standing and why.
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I can dig that out for you.
all right. Does anybody
It
else have
seems to
something?
me
say?
that this
Uh-oh.
whole bank is being affected by the fact that Billingsgate Island is effectively not there. And I just don't want us to be working piecemeal without having some big picture, so to speak.
Yep,
So that's where Greg Berman's gonna come in.
Right.
Okay.
so
So
I'll
I,
reach out to him tomorrow.
I think we can adjourn.
I second that.
Yep.
Barbara, how do you,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Mike, do you want to go away?
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
how does Judith feel about it? Because it
She
says John
may
and
want me
Judith.
to
I'm
stay on the
taking it.
meeting just to stay out of her hair.
Okay, and I also vote yes. So as far as I'm concerned, we are done.
All right. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, that was great.
Sorry,
good
I
work.
missed it.
Yeah,
You wouldn't believe
you
what
were
missed.
missed, but we got through it.
Good, okay, well, I don't think there was anything too tricky, right?
No. Somebody said that they were surprised I went through it so fast, but that's my
I
job.
love it, great, good job, good job. All right, onward we
All right,
go.
we'll see y'all later. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.